It's November 2nd, 8:33 p.m. I'm going to play Colonel Douglas McGregor. He has the facts on what's happening in Ukraine, as well as a psychological description of the administration that's interesting.
5,000. And recently we've seen battalion-sized units, 5, 6, 700, actually trying to probe and walk through Russian defenses. They're running out of manpower that can fight it. In fact, the information I have is that the Polish soldiers in Ukrainian uniform, and we don't know how many there are. I've heard lots of estimates, all the way up to and a little bit above 10,000. And then the so-called Foreign Legion that Ukraine has fielded, which may number 5 to 7,000 or less. Again, we don't know. That those formations are the only formations with any stomach for a serious attack in a major fight. So that's the other point. Now, finally, to go to yours, yes, Judge, we have people in Washington who want a direct confrontation with Russia because they believe they can bully Russia. They believe they can compel the Russians to submit, that Mr. Zelensky can show up and accept their surrender. It's bizarre. There's no evidence for it. It's dangerous. It's stupid. But yes, they are there. And I think that characterizes the thinking at the top of the administration.
Okay. Bizarre, stupid, it makes no sense, right? They're delusional. That's clear. Most of Americans are delusional in the same way. I noticed that McGregor and these military analysts who know what they're talking about, who I've followed for a long time, for the last 5 or 6 months, and have predicted all the results, incidentally. There's Scott Ritter, who I've listened to describe exactly what would happen 5 months out, because he can tell what the relative capabilities are of the Russian military and the Ukrainian NATO alliance. It's pretty simple. But what I'm aware of is this psychological description, because I've studied psychiatry for decades, along with being with psychiatrists. That's the best way to study how insane psychiatrists are, psychoanalysts, is to be with a Freudian psychoanalyst, like I was for years, a Jewish survivor of Auschwitz. They're interesting people. But paranoid schizophrenia is what Hillary Clinton has, and the Obama administration. And paranoid schizophrenics, that's why she's always talking about a vast right-wing conspiracy and everybody's out to get her. Or Zelensky is saying we have to, and he's a Jewish comic. I mean, it's characteristic of Jews. That's not a anti-Semitism or slur. It's in the Holocaust. So, it's in the memory that everybody is going to put them in concentration camps. So Protestants are the same way. Everybody has that. If that paranoia gets out of control like it has now, you have Zelensky saying we have to nuke Russia before they nuke us. And any rational person that knows about the history of Russia or has followed Putin's actual statements where he keeps trying to float a peace plan and doesn't want to move into Ukraine. He just wants to separate out the Russian Federation, which is ethnically and historically Russian. There is no intention of Russia driving on to Berlin like in the Second World War. It doesn't make any sense. So that's why McGregor is exactly right, saying this is senseless and bizarre. If you're a thinking, rational human being, to think that the 101st Airborne and a couple units, deployed with 10,000 Polish troops is going to be a counter-offensive, or if it's even going to survive, a mobilized 700,000 man strong military, of hardened military people that are defending their homeland. That's what people don't understand. It's like why the South was completely militarily successful against. They won all the early battles against the North who were invading them. They only lost because they weren't able to replace their troops or replace their military equipment. And so here you have the opposite situation where Russia they can mobilize as many troops as they want and make more and more armaments and ammo and everything. Well, the West has exhausted all its finest fighting people in Ukraine have all been wiped out, along with the weaponry that's just being thrown in and to no purpose whatsoever. It's like Vietnam or Afghanistan or any of the former military engagements of these lunatics that they have not won a war in decades, and they've catastrophically lost the wars against fleas by comparison to Russia. Compare Russia to Iraq. So we go in and are soundly defeated by an Iraqi army we've taken all their weapons. They just form a guerrilla army. We decommission. I mean, it's the stupidest thing. I don't know who knows about the history of the Iraq War, but the stupidest thing possible is to take Saddam's army and leave them unemployed, decommission them, send them home without any money. So what they do is they reform into terrorist guerrilla units and drive the U.S. out. And Russia is a whole different can of spinach with like Popeye. This is beyond insane. Anyway, that's just for whoever out there in cyberspace wants to understand that this is not going to end well for the United States of America or for Europe, and maybe psychologically prepare for that and realize, maybe vote these schizophrenic, paranoid nut jobs out. I'm not so crazy about the opposition either in terms of because they're just as gung ho. I watched the Sean Hannitys and the Sean Penns together in perfect. I watched at the start of this thing, just like I did at the start of the Iraq War, where Sean Penn and Sean Hannity. Sean Penn has gone over to visit Zelensky, and they're both saying he can win this thing. What? Because he's a good Jewish actor comedian wearing camo, like Sean Penn in a movie, and he doesn't look at all at the capabilities of Russia and the depth of their uh, military might and their generals and their soldiers versus Ukraine, which has Nazi battalion Azov brigade. Yeah, they're motivated in the same way Hitler's Nazis were motivated, but whether or not any of it is going to add up to more than human carnage and slaughter, like in the First World War, which is what you saw with this static line with them just being wiped out. Russia wasn't doing anything but holding off the offensive and just blowing them up, just like sitting ducks. It just. But the Western media doesn't cover it because we're losing. It's exactly what happened in Iraq. I watched the Iraq War. I was against the Iraq War. I said it was going to be a fiasco. Uh, I was one of 2% that marched on the White House or marched around Washington to no effect because the entirety of the liberal media was in solidarity with the conservative media. It's the same media. and just like now, it's war fever and it's madness, and it comes from the paranoid strain in American politics, and also that the only solution to problems is magnum force, or Billy the Kid, or the Northfield, Minnesota bank robbery, or this is always ending up the Civil War, the First World War, the Second World War, the lack of understanding that we don't rule the world anymore, and we're not going to be able to fight uh, China and North Korea and India and all the Eurasian countries, OPEC, that are aligned. I don't know what to say at this point. Anyway, that's just the historical background, and where the reality of this war. Here's somebody else that's in my visions and dreams and everything are in line with. It's very disturbing stuff. So maybe people will want to tune out, but I'm going to play it anyway. This is Celestial. It's called Changes Ahead Part 2, and it's just a bit of a clip, but I see what's coming to America just like she does.
America, honestly, if you feel the Lord is being unfaithful and if you feel the Lord is accusing you unjustly, look at this nation in the past 30 years and ask yourself, all the reform programs that have come forth, have they made the nation better or worse? All the new laws that have been promulgated, every day a new law, every day a new regulation, have those regulations protected the widow and the orphan, the fatherless? Do you see the homeless in our states being taken care of? Or are they making more and more laws to drive these people out? It is very difficult to be homeless. It is a heartbreaking process. God told me once, you people are the only ones who are born without your natural habitat being there to protect you. We don't have fur. We don't have fins. We don't have a turtle shell. We don't have dens. He said the only thing that keeps you safe is your homes. And when your homes, your towns, and your cities are destroyed, it is devastating for you because you are born naked, and naked you stay until the day you come back to me. Are we making laws to take care of these people? We are currently in the middle of an administration that is handing out needles and rubber arm stoppers to people who are on drugs. Do we really think that the storyline that we are being given, oh, it's dangerous for them to share needles, so you provide fresh needles for them to get their junkie on instead of coming up with programs to get them off the streets? Winter is coming, snow is coming, and people are living in trailer parks all over the city. And I don't mean the neat ones that you can live in. I mean these makeshift ones that are under the bridges, and then the cops come and say, move along, move along. Can we honestly say that with all the chances God has given since 9/11, that we are doing our best, that laws and the people that keep getting into power are out here promoting the best interests of the country? The Lord, you put me off, and he told me, don't be like them and don't come asking for a second chance for them. I will not give this country any more grace from now on. Everything that the people who hate her and that the people who want to destroy her have planned for her, every single thing, I am going to allow them to do it. Do you know what it is for God to step back and take his hand from on you and tell you, you didn't want me in the schools, you didn't want me even in the churches because you're so busy following your fake Jesus that is promising you rainbows and fairy tales? I will withdraw many of these prophecies. The Lord has said, you will find out what it is like to be in the hands of Satan. And so on November 3rd, the very day that people were exercising their civil rights, the Lord said that there would be no grace to this country. Just a moment, please.
I'll leave it there. I've just been watching what she's talking about. I lived in Denver 3 years ago, and it was a beautiful city. It's heartbreaking to see it now after this liberal policies have taken over. I knew it was going to happen because I watched what Portland is like and LA is like, and Chicago is like. And Denver wasn't like that at all until the drug program, the free drug mafia people came in from California. And yeah, you have all the high rollers. There's luxury stuff that you've never seen before. But along with that comes all the what Celestial is describing. Along with that comes all the homelessness. Boulder, you could walk out during the day, go in the parks. Now the parks are filled with homeless people getting free lunches, lining up. 50 people, 60 people to be fed. So that's not treatment. That's what we were told. I mean, that was the rhetoric of defund the police and the social workers are going to go and take care of everybody. What good has a social worker ever done for anybody? They just make a big salary and sit on their butt, and people go in for an hour and talk to them, and they make I don't know, someone make 150 grand a year or something like that. They go to college, so they have a degree, so they can sit on their ass and tell somebody what. Well, you can't tell them about God because that's against the law of the Psychiatric Association. So if you mention Jesus or somebody where they might find that they have a savior, they're not going to do that because the policy is that we're not a Christian nation. And we kicked, like Celestial said, we've kicked God out of, you can't have nativity scenes, so you got Charlie Brown's Christmas. They've got Snoopy on their lawn. You got Halloween, the pagan rituals that the Christians are all participating in because you've got to have the kids happy. And all the Easter bunny, that's the resurrection. Is the let's paint Easter eggs. All right, it's turning our backs on God, and that this is the result, among other things, is a society that doesn't care, that where there's no love, love's gone cold, children are disobedient to parents, authority is mocked, Jesus is mocked, there's slander, there's hatred everywhere, there's war, there's an unending war that we talk about peace. It couldn't be more absurd because who goes to war? The Christians are the first ones out there screaming to go to Iraq or get in their Top Gun uniforms with George Bush. There's a contradiction here, and it's a glaring contradiction. And that's the same with the Buddhists and the Hindus and everyone else that talk the talk, but there's no walk of any walk. Everybody wants to put on robes and go up to the mountain and do yoga, or they want to chant, their psalms and on cyberspace and Zoom church. Did Martin Luther close the churches during the plague? Were the Catholic churches closed when there were plagues in Europe? Oh boy, we get a virus and it's time to shut all the churches and burn them down too, because that's what the media says is free speech. All right, in terms of the financial situation, I'll clue you into that. This is Gerald Salent.
Points already happened. Look what's going on around the world. Look at Europe with the European Central Bank. What do you have? What do you have? 9.1% inflation rate in Europe. What's your interest rate? 0.75%. What are you kidding me? What am I, 6 years old? Who are you talking to? If you borrowed money from the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, you got to raise your interest rates 1% over the inflation rate. So the interest rate in the EU should be what? 10.1%? It's 0.75. I'm telling you, the game is over. Look what's going on in look at the yen is at a 25-year low, and they won't raise interest rates, and they're pumping more money in. Look what's going on in the UK, the disaster. When all else fails, they take you to war. What followed the Great Depression? World War II. What followed the dot-com bust? The war on terror. The NASDAQ was down 66% before 9/11. People will forget all about it. There's going to be a false flag attempt or something that's going to take the war. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, the banking system has been hacked. We're sorry. We're going to do everything we can to get your money. We'll do our best. All right? They'll pull any game they want. U.S. economy is not doing well. You get the Trends Journal. You see every week we put in the layoffs. One big company after another. Bop, 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 bop. No. Look what's going on in China. The lockdowns are continuing. Look at the unemployment rate of the people, the young people. It's like what, 13, 14%? And now people are starting to protest and they're putting more mandates, the zero COVID policy. Look what's going on in Italy. Again, it's in your Trends Journal. Over 100,000 small and medium-sized businesses are going out of business. And now, because of the imbeciles that put the sanctions on Russia, your energy prices are skyrocketing, hurting businesses even more and the people.
Yeah, and I'll add that diesel fuel is running out at the 2-week mark from today, according to CNBC, and it's been announced in Southeastern Oil Company. We can't recall the name. I can also see that Salanta's getting, he's like myself, is stumbling over words. We're both, or we're all, the people watching this can't believe our eyes. And we're seeing it, but somehow nobody else is seeing it on the street. It's like there's no reaction at all. I listen to conversations. I have for the last 30 years. That's where I work, is in coffee shops, listening to conversations. What are taking the temperature of the American people? It's ice cold. It's like comatose. It's corpse-like. There's no input coming in from real information from the real world. It's all fantasy stuff from the media, 100% of which is nonsense or entertainment. It's like you have to be cheered up. So you go off into a fantasy world, it's not going to work. There's I've heard so many people say, you have to escape. No wonder the young people are escaping into drugs or into this or that because the world's so terrible. It's not so terrible if you're not escaping into drugs, but it is terrible when all these people are escaping into drugs and AI, intelligence, and everything else, and not reading or paying attention to reality. Then it is really terrible. It's terrible for them, and it's terrible for the society at large. It's, excuse me, it's going to get a lot worse, and it's going to get a lot worse really fast. I have no doubt about what Saletta is saying, that there's going to be, because it's happened every single time in the past. It's called wag the dog. It's the tail will wag the dog. And who's the tail? It's these mad, insane people that we've put into office. And they don't want to be caught with all their criminal activity, so they go to war. They take the public's attention away and fixate it on Putin or Trump or whoever, because then they can blame it on some other people, not them. It's not their policies causing all of this. It's Putin that's causing it. And the American people, by and large, are just not, they didn't pay any attention in the first place. And they're not paying attention now. So the false flag that Salanda's referencing could be anything. It could be exactly what he describes, which is there'll be a event that they'll blame on somebody else, of course, which will freeze banking. There's a cyber attack. There's a hacking attack that's shut down the banking system. We don't know. We're trying to fix it. Or there'll be this dirty bomb that Ukraine is planting, as far as my belief goes, because Russia's identified that they have it. And Russia does not want to see a dirty bomb go off. So they'd hardly announce that they have a dirty bomb that Ukraine, and then why would they want to set off a dirty bomb? They're winning the war in Ukraine without any resistance. I mean, they've destroyed most of their intelligence and infrastructure. Their water supply in Kiev is gone. They'll freeze to death during the winter. Why would they want to set off a dirty bomb? Exactly. The only people that, so it's qui bono, it's who will benefit, is what you always ask when something happens, a major catastrophe, like who's benefiting? Like who benefits from a nuclear reactor if it's blown up in Crimea? Does Russia? Why would Russia be bombing their own nuclear reactor, as the Western media claim? Why would they be blowing up their own gas pipeline, Nord Stream, where they're depending on selling their gas for a good profit? And after that, Anthony Blinken comes out and says that it's a tremendous opportunity. Oh yeah, they'll free. It's not an opportunity for our allies, but it's an opportunity for us to sell them liquid natural gas at much higher rate than they were getting from Russia. And so that's who benefits. So whether or not the US did it, or whether, as Russia has now found out, Britain did it, it doesn't matter who the proxy is. If Ukraine did it, or Finland does it, or whomever, Russia is not doing it. That's really clear. You don't blow up your own nuclear reactor or your own gas line. I mean, except unless you're the US, yeah, you cut off your own gas supply, you cut off your oil industry, we've destroyed our oil industry. You just can't ramp it right back up. We've destroyed our fracking and oil industry and refineries to refine diesel fuel. Those were shut down for the COVID event. And it's all taking an opportunity. And I have a lot of questions about these events where people are just like in China. I have the same questions here as I have in China and Australia about what the purpose is and who controls this. All these events that are supposedly happening without any cause. And I would say it's the dark forces. I'm not, my belief, call me a paranoid schizophrenic, but my belief is that there is a Satan, and the Satan is just as Celestial is saying, that God has turned his back. He's letting, this is all in scripture, incidentally. If anybody wants to look at the book of Revelation, chapter 17 and 18 about Mystery Babylon, that's a really dead-on description of these times in the United States of America, we're exporting all of this porn filth and garbage to the rest of the world. We're the center of this decadence. Let's just call it decadence. Maybe people will get offended if I call it filth and sewer garbage and smut and all those things that it is. I mean, who doesn't think child porn and all this horror stuff, bestiality, and everything available on the internet, if anything should be made illegal, why isn't that made illegal? I'd like to know. Oh, because that's free speech. But say something that is the truth, and the ministry of truth, the Orwellian ministry, the truth, that somehow people think that that they aren't Big Brother. I mean, who's reporting all of this on everybody? Who's censoring it? It's not. Who's the government? Well, it's the entire political class. Whoever is working for, maybe Elon Musk will allow some free speech to come back, which will immediately be called I don't know, hate speech against LGBTQT plus plus plus. If you're not on board with that agenda, then you're filled with hate, and you're targeting them. You're going to go out, and hate crimes will happen immediately if you don't agree with what their agenda, it's that's the Orwellian reality we're in now, and the result of that Orwellian reality is not going to be a picnic. So I just report on what's happening every day. The latest thing, I know it would be more interesting if I took put up the pictures, but maybe I'll see if I can find them. It's the AI, because that blasted into my YouTube this morning, and because I was on a different YouTube, not my algorithms don't have any of this pop stuff, but it's all the AI robots with the big breasts that look like Madonna now, and have the same kind of SM gear, and who knows the price. They're affordable. They're coming out in China at the new robot exposition. No doubt Japan is at the forefront of that. And where does it come from, really, over here? Well, that's Walt Disney. That's the kiddie place where you get whatever, the new LGBTQT agenda, plus you get the robots, plus you get the AI helmets, plus you get the whole brand Brave New World agenda of the WEF. So the notion that Disney is a harmless little place for the kids, just like Las Vegas is. Oh, now you can take the family, yeah, and they have hookers out on the streets with their brothel cards. I mean, it's a wonderful place to take the family. It's a really family oriented. You know, I tell you that there's a blind eye being turned to all the sin activity, and God's eye isn't blind. That's really how Christians think this is Christianity is really mind-boggling to me. I'm on the wavelength of the Bible itself, say from the first century, with the early Christians and the apostles, prior to its incorporation into the Roman Empire. And this is the final revived Roman Empire spoken of in the book of Daniel, and all the other prophetic word from the prophets. And Jesus Christ is a prophet, and the book of Revelation is the words of Jesus Christ. If you are a believing Christian, and not believing in the science and believing in the new world utopia that we're in. All right, that's enough. That's 30 minutes. God bless everybody. I hope you'll be safe and you'll protect your food supply. You'll get stocked up with food, because there's definitely, it's two things. There's the 50% increases in things like canola oil, I mean basic vegetable oils, meat prices up 20-30%, and this 8% inflation is BS. It's obviously BS. The dairy stuff is disappearing. I mean, I go in to see replacement of meat with all of the veggie burgers and commercials saying how we're saving the planet, and you save 30 gallons of water if it's all bullshit. It just is, and it's multi-ethnic, of course. There's, an Asian, African American, Hispanic, every gender, and they're all saving the planet by eating vegetable burgers or insect flour or insect health bars. And I'm not exaggerating. There's these crickets are being ground up inside the flour and everything else, because that's where the protein comes from, and it tastes great because there's all these chemicals. It looks great because there's all these chemicals. You know, people will just buy, I don't know, whatever. These happy, healthy, multi-ethnic people, and Nicole Kidman in a bikini, and Jane Fonda with her abs workout. Oh, they look great at 70. Well, yeah, you take all the injections and have your own plastic surgeon, and your personal trainer and you'll look great. Plus you get to live in an underground bunker when all the surface people die off.